You've seen the footage. A boat the size of a two-story house tossed around like a bath toy, waves as tall as a building crashing over the rail, men in bright orange, soaked to the bone, hauling 700-pound steel cages out of black water at 3 in the morning. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you probably assume the same thing most people do, that these guys are out here because they are desperate, because they ran out of options, because nobody with a choice would ever do this. That assumption is completely wrong. Some of these men earn more in 6 weeks than the average American earns in a year, and every single one of them chose to be there on the most dangerous patch of working ocean on Earth, knowing exactly what it could take from them. There are 3 things about life on a Bering Sea crab boat that almost nobody on land understands. The first is why they go, the second is what actually kills people out there, and it is not what you would guess. And the third is a twist that flipped this entire industry on its head, one that even a lot of longtime fans of those TV shows have never heard. By the end of this, you'll never look at a plate of crab legs the same way again. So let us start with the money, because the money is stranger than you think. Here is the first surprise. A deckhand on a Bering Sea crab boat does not earn a salary. There is no hourly wage, no paycheck that shows up every 2 weeks no matter what. Instead, the entire crew gets paid on something called a crew share, which means each man takes home a percentage of whatever the boat catches. If the boat has a monster season, everybody eats. If the boat comes back half empty, everybody goes home with almost nothing. And the split is brutally based on rank. The lowest man on the boat is called a greenhorn, a first-timer, and he might take home just a few percent of the haul. That can mean anywhere from $5,000 for 2 months of the hardest labor of his life, all the way up to $15,000 if the catch is good. Move up to a seasoned deckhand and that share can climb toward 10%. The captain, he might pull in $200,000 in a single season. Now sit with that for a second. On the same boat, in the same freezing water, doing many of the same jobs, one man might make $5,000 and another might make $200,000. And the only thing standing between those two numbers is experience and trust. Which brings us to the greenhorn, because before a rookie earns $1, he usually has to survive an initiation. Crews have been known to make the new guy bite the head clean off a raw herring on his first day. It sounds like a joke. It isn't. It's a test. Out here, the man next to you is the difference between you living and dying, and the crew wants to know, before the real weather hits, whether the new guy can be pushed and still keep his composure. But the money and the hazing are the easy part, because even if the pay is life-changing, none of it matters if you don't make it back to the dock. And what actually kills people out there is not what most people picture. Here's what almost nobody understands about the Bering Sea. It's not the size of the waves that kills you, it's the temperature of the water. In crab season, that water sits right around freezing, often just a few degrees above the point where the ocean itself would turn to ice. And the human body does something specific when it hits water that cold. The first thing that happens isn't hypothermia, it's the gasp reflex. The shock of the cold forces your lungs to suck in air involuntarily, and if your face happens to be underwater when it happens, you inhale seawater instead. Within a couple of minutes, the cold shuts down the muscles in your arms and hands. You physically cannot grip a rope, a ladder, or a rescue line, even if it's dangling right in front of your face. This is why roughly 80% of the deaths in this fishery come from drowning, not from injuries, not from the boat sinking, from a man going into the water and the water taking him before anyone can pull him out. And the deck itself is a minefield. Those crab pots aren't little cages, each one is a steel box that can weigh 700 to 800 pounds empty, and it gets swung across the deck on a crane while the boat is pitching in heavy seas. One wave at the wrong moment, one snapped line, and that pot becomes a wrecking ball. Veteran captains have watched a single wave rip a man clean off the stack and drop him into the sea in front of their eyes. Then there's the icy. When the spray freezes, it doesn't just make the deck slippery, it builds, layer after layer until the boat is carrying tons of extra frozen weight up high, exactly where you don't want it. Enough ice on the rigging can flip a boat over entirely. So the crew has to go out into the storm with baseball bats and mallets and physically beat the ice off the boat to keep it from capsizing. That's not a story from 100 years ago, that's part of the job. So by now you're probably picturing the most dangerous job in America, and 30 years ago you'd have been exactly right. But here's the twist almost nobody sees coming. In the 1990s, the Bering Sea crab fishery had a death rate of around 770 fatalities for every 100,000 workers. That is an almost unimaginable number, dozens of times more dangerous than the average American job. On average, roughly 8 men died every single year. And the reason was the format. Back then, crab fishing was run like a race. The season would open, a starting gun would effectively go off, and every boat in the fleet would sprint to catch as much as possible in just a few days. Boats loaded on too many pots because more pots meant more crab. Captains pushed crews to work 40, 50, 60 hours with almost no sleep. Men made deadly mistakes because they were too exhausted to think straight. It was a system practically designed to get people killed. Then, around 2005, everything changed. Regulators switched to a quota system. Instead of racing the whole fleet at once, each boat got its own share of the catch to fill at its own pace, over a season that now stretches across months instead of days. The Coast Guard started running dockside stability and safety checks before boats could even leave. And the results were staggering. The fatality rate collapsed. In some stretches after the reforms, the entire fishery went years with just a single death. So the deadliest catch quietly became a whole lot less deadly. Not because the ocean got any kinder, but because people stopped racing it. Now let me put you on the deck for a second so you understand what a bad moment actually feels like out there. Picture it, it's the middle of the night. The boat is rolling hard in a black sea and you're on the rail sorting crab as fast as your frozen hands will move. A wave you never saw builds behind the boat, lifts the stern, and slams down across the deck. When the water clears, a man is gone, just gone. Now the clock starts, and it is merciless. In water this cold he has minutes, not hours, and his hands are already useless. The boat has to turn around in heavy seas, in the dark, and find a single head bobbing in a field of black waves. Even in a survival suit, even with the whole crew screaming his name and sweeping spotlights across the water, the cold does not wait. Every fisherman out there knows this math by heart. It's why the number one unbreakable rule on deck is simple. One hand for the boat, always. You never fully let go. And surviving out here does not start when the storm hits. It starts long before the boat ever leaves the harbor. Every crew drills with immersion suits, the bright orange full-body suits crews nickname Gumby suits, because if the boat goes down, the difference between life and death is how fast you can zip into one. Seconds matter. They stage anti-icing plans, watch schedules so no one works themselves into a fatal mistake, and constant checks on gear because a single snapped cable at the wrong moment can end everything. The preparation is the job. The fishing is almost the easy part. So here's the question that ties it all together. Knowing all of this, the cold, the pots, the ice, the men who didn't come back, why do they keep going out? Ask them, and most will tell you the same handful of things. The money that can change a life in a matter of weeks, the kind of brotherhood you only get with people who've literally trusted you with their lives, and a pull to the water that they genuinely can't explain to anyone who hasn't felt it. But here's the final twist, and it's the one nobody saw coming. In recent years, the greatest threat to these men didn't come from the storms at all, it came from the crab vanishing. Around 10 billion snow crabs simply disappeared from the Bering Sea over a span of a few years, and scientists eventually tied it to warming water that essentially starved them out. The fishery was shut down completely. For the first time in its history, the danger wasn't the sea trying to kill the fishermen. It was an empty ocean threatening to end their entire way of life. The season has only recently begun clawing its way back, with a fraction of the old catch and a fleet a fraction of its old size. So the next time you see one of those boats on TV, remember this: those men aren't desperate and they aren't reckless. They're some of the most prepared, most skilled, and most tightly bonded workers on the planet. And the ocean they're fighting turned out to be more fragile than any of them ever imagined. Now I want to hear from you. Would you last one single shift on a boat like this? Be honest in the comments. And if you've ever worked a dangerous job yourself, tell me what it was. I read every comment. If you learned something today, hit like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you on the next one.